Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about our favorite news story of 2022. Pretty much dominated my channel throughout that year. Yes, we're talking about the Activision Xbox deal. Now, I made a promise to y'all and myself. It would have to take a significant thing occurring that was making headlines across all the websites, all the YouTubers, for me to sit down and talk about the deal again. I was like, all right, let's look for something more interesting and refreshing to talk about. We were all feeling the fatigue. So during this very busy week where we're playing Hogwarts Legacy and there's been no shortage of drama, I was surprised to see one news bit rise to the top of the cycle. And that was the CMA making their latest statement against Xbox. Now, when I first saw this, I kind of went, all right, it's just another day of legal issues with Xbox and this Activision deal, and I'm feeling kind of uncertain about it. But as I started reading deeper, this is a pretty significant turn of events. Now, of course, I'm not gaming's favorite lawyer. I'm not Hogue Law, so I'm not going to pretend to know the ins and outs of this process, nor do I ever claim to, but I'd like to discuss it nonetheless because this seems to be a significant point in the actual deal where we're looking at how things may start to change and what Xbox will have to do potentially to get this deal done. Or is it posturing on the CMA's behalf? Now, the CMA is the UK regulatory body, whereas the FTC is the one we should really all be paying attention to. And just late last year, we had learned around the Game Awards that they had moved to block the Activision deal. So things since then have been on this downward cycle, and here we are now with the latest stage in the cycle, and it's, again, not looking all that clean. There is much to discuss with what's going on at the CMA, so let's dive in. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into Xbox news and information, consider subscribing. We're going to be going through an article by Ars Technica because they got exclusive statements from both Microsoft and Activision that we'll be going through along with the main story. So let's get to reading. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority, CMA, came down squarely against Microsoft's proposed $69 billion Activision acquisition Wednesday morning. In a sprawling provisional report summary, the government regulator said the merger could hurt consumers by weakening the important rivalry between Xbox and PlayStation gaming consoles and could result in higher prices, fewer choices, and less innovation for UK gamers. Look, off the rip, I see that and I just don't understand. When the pledge has been for Call of Duty to, hey, we're going to put this on Switch where it hasn't been in a dang long time. We're going to continue to support Steam and so on and so forth. I see something like this and I go, where are the lesser choices? Like, what am I missing here? And CMA slowly explains that. So we'll see if they stand to reason. Let's keep going. The CMA's provisional findings focus on cloud gaming, where the CMA says Microsoft already accounts for 60 to 70% of the global market. After the merger, Microsoft would find it commercially beneficial to make Activision's games exclusive to its own cloud gaming service, or only available on other services under materially worse conditions, the CMA said. Now look, I don't toot my own horn with this story a lot because I fully admit, just shooting from the hip most of the time because I am not a legal expert, but when you look at the market concentration, you look where Microsoft has a strong foothold and where they don't. While they're, say, weak on exclusives, we know they're way ahead of the game on Azure and subscription services. And I always said that when it comes to this deal, we should really pay attention to cloud gaming infrastructure, because when you think about PlayStation, like they tried to do it first with Gaikai when they announced that during an E3 conference, and all of us were going, what? But now we're taking a look at Xbox, who has really stormed ahead and in fact made partnership deals with Sony to provide Azure tech for their own cloud purposes. So there's no denying that Microsoft has always had a strong foothold in the cloud space. And I could understand, in all fairness, some level of skepticism like, yo, y'all already are pretty dominant here. You're only going to dominate more with these games, with these offerings there. But to me, that's where competition had thrived. While Xbox fell behind in exclusives, they really picked things up in services and now have the best service in gaming. So what do you want them to do? Fail here so that PlayStation can succeed there? Or Nintendo? I don't understand where we're trying to head with this, but it gets more interesting. Let's keep going. The CMA also expressed particular worry about a small number of key games, of course, including Call of Duty, being potentially locked to Xbox and Windows PCs. While Microsoft has repeatedly promised that Call of Duty would remain fully available on other platforms for at least 10 years after the merger, the CMA notes that Microsoft has previously purchased other game studios and then made their content exclusive to Microsoft platforms. The loss of Call of Duty on PlayStation platforms in particular could reduce competition and result in all gamers seeing high prices, reduced range, lower quality, and worse service in gaming consoles over time, the CMA argued. This is where I do hope the CMA and other regulatory bodies truly listen to reason here. I understand the initial gut reaction, like this is no doubt the biggest franchise in gaming being Call of Duty. And there is true impact in having that under your umbrella, even if it is in a capacity of, hey, this is still going to PlayStation, Nintendo, Steam. You're still collecting dollars and cents off of every sale on those respective platforms as well. Microsoft does gain a lot with it. But in the spirit of competition, I look at PlayStation and think, well, you're still going to have that, and you may be more motivated to invest in a first-person shooter to collect all the dollars and cents exclusively through your platform, right? You don't have to worry about splitting the fee with anybody except the developer who's already in your own house, so it's even lessened there. I always find this whole thing about Xbox making Bethesda games exclusive as a talking point, because while we don't have it on absolute official word from a Microsoft or PlayStation exec, there were very strong reports cycling that PlayStation wanted to have Redfall and Starfield exclusively. And of course, we saw the beginning of those dealings with Ghostwire Tokyo, and then Xbox took the rest away. We saw how Bethesda was dividing up their content and pretty much selling it off to the highest bidder. And so that again is competition, and that's been PlayStation's bread and butter. But for me, when they say games like Overwatch, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft are going to continue to be on other platforms, we're not going to make them exclusive, and these are some of the biggest that Xbox is going to acquire, you know, I think to myself, where are the lesser options coming in? Does Xbox get more competitive options if they can say, make Spyro or maybe even Tony Hawk Pro Skater exclusive? Yeah, but again, I feel that's in the spirit of some form of competition. So this whole way, you've noticed I've sort of been looking at all of these statements from the CMA and kind of just offering my view on things. But here's the real kicker. Here's where things do take that major shift I've been talking about, where things kind of start to get dark for Xbox. Because a lot of these we've heard before. Call of Duty's the problem. And yeah, you need to split it up. You need to be fair. This may harm PlayStation, even though there's multiple other competing gaming companies, and Nintendo's been fine without it. But we ignore that because of family and friends. So we get to this new stage in the battle. Okay, Xbox, we're still willing to let this go through. Here's what you got to give up. And everyone expected the biggest deal in gaming and one of the biggest acquisitions of all time to demand some sort of concessions. And what those we expected to be were in the form of Call of Duty. We're giving it away for 10 years. We're not going to lock it down. We're doing that for, we're doing that for Overwatch. We're doing that for World of Warcraft and so on and so forth. Like, they're not, quote, locking things down, right? They're trying to be, quote, fair, end quote. But that doesn't seem to be enough. And this is where it gets really interesting on what the suggested offer is. And the reason it's interesting is because I wonder if Microsoft's not game for this and they can't get their way, do they want to go through with it? Where the deal doesn't necessarily get blocked because the CMA or the FTC say, it's not happening, sorry. But because the concessions they ask for are so grand that Microsoft doesn't see value in, say, paying $69 billion and going, oh, and we only got half the company. So let's read what the CMA is thinking. In a separate report on potential remedies, the CMA suggested its approval of the merger might depend on Microsoft divesting large parts of Activision Blizzard King. That could mean Microsoft splitting off Activision or its Call of Duty business, or making Activision and Blizzard into a separate entity, the last option leaving mobile-focused King as part of the deal. So why this is so important is because now we're going to learn what Xbox wants from this deal. And their response is going to be key. Because when you look at their replies right now, it's very much a different energy. Typically, they were combative. They were immediately calling out contradictions. And they could do so because they didn't have to indicate directly what they wanted with the deal. But now it's a little more neutral of saying, we're going to speak to them. We're going to hope they see reason. We're planning our statement now. And I understand, given it was within a 24-hour window, they may not have had a full statement prepared. But the reason this is key is now we're going to see, does Xbox want Call of Duty out of this? Is that why the deal was made in the first place? Does Microsoft want King because of the mobile game money? Do they want Blizzard for all of their current and dormant IP? Because right now what the CMA is suggesting, for those who don't understand what divesting parts of the business means, is Microsoft getting them and effectively selling them off. So they could take Blizzard but get rid of the Activision part of the company and the King part of the company to other suitors to split it up, to break it up. They could take Call of Duty but not get the rest. They could take King but not get the rest. That's the CMA's proposal as a solution. We can let it go through, and that's the interesting part of it all, is the CMA has shown some willingness here to be like, all right, you know, we're willing to let this go through, but you got to give something up. And this goes back to square one, right? What we've talked about on the channel and defining Duke multiple times is it's going to come down to concessions, and it's about how much. But the reason it gets even more fascinating to me and why I really wanted to make this video is the idea I had of, at a certain point, let's say the FTC, the CMA, everyone's in alignment saying, you got to divide this business up if you want this to go through. Like, that's a great idea. You got to divide it up where you got to give up one or two of these parts of the company in order to actually bring the rest into the fold. Otherwise, it'll destabilize competition. You got to sell off the rest. Will Microsoft want to pay the big bucks to only get part of the pie? I could imagine probably not. Right? You buy King because you get the mobile game money. It immediately fixes one of their biggest issues, right? They need that money on the mobile end to invest and grow that market, because right now their main mobile presence is cloud gaming, which not everyone has access to. And while I'm not a fan of mobile gaming, it is proven to grow your IP. So there is some importance there if you're a business, but as a creative, no thanks. Meanwhile, when you look at Activision, you want them because of Call of Duty. And then you look at Blizzard, it's like, but there's so many IP there, bro. There's so much you want. So each part of the pie, I think, is equally vital. One's a business reality. One is the biggest IP in gaming. Of course you want that. Even if it's going out to everyone, you're collecting some dollars and cents each sale. And then the other just strengthens Game Pass enormously. And future IP from it, strengthen it. It's a win-win-win for Xbox if they get all three parts. But are you willing to pay X amount of dollars, no matter how it's broken up and how the deal is restructured, to just get King, to just get Blizzard, to just get Activision, to just get Activision and King? How does it get broken up? And that is why it's so key to talk about, because now it may be showing Microsoft going, well, we just want to Call of Duty, and y'all are taking that away from us? No, we don't want the rest. Would they be willing to just pay $3 billion to cancel the deal? I think the CMA is posturing a little bit to see what concessions they can wring out of Microsoft, and we need to make that very clear that it's a part of this. This is politics at the end of the day, and that this isn't a hard and fast statement. And the reality beneath this all is the CMA has openly said, to let it go through, here's what you'll need to do. And while that's, again, now up to Microsoft and Activision to propose to them, here's why what you're saying doesn't make sense and why it will be good for competition and so on and so forth, I can't help but look at it and say, if all the doors are shut down, they say you've got to give up pieces of the business now. It's not just Call of Duty, it's pieces of the business now. Will Xbox play ball with that? And I just can't see it. And I'm very fascinated by the idea. And since the FTC stepped in, I've sort of gone lukewarm on it, where at first I was like, I can see it going through. But once you see the FTC come in and go, we're blocking the deal, it's like, okay, now we're asking for concessions. I think this, again, the FTC are the big dogs you really want to pay attention to. But the CMA is important to look at as well, because we're talking about overall regulatory bodies, globally speaking. But it's typically, from my knowledge of speaking with Hogue Law about this on many occasions, the FTC is kind of the guiding force here. So this is important because let's say the FTC takes what the CMA is saying and gets in line with it. This becomes really, really interesting for Xbox. A predicament that I'm not sure how they're going to navigate. That's up to the lawyers they pay big bucks to. Certainly not me, who's just speculating in an office chair. But I can't help but wonder, because if this gets shut down, then it's about the tantalizing aftermath on how Xbox handles things. Do they go scorched earth on third-party exclusive deals? Do they go out and nab smaller studios? What do they do? And how do they navigate this? At the end of the day, if we're seeing Activision Blizzard's acquisition go on for years and years and years and years, Can this be something that Xbox wants to hang around for Microsoft to hang around for? Again, it's going to be really, really neat to find out. But that's your news story for today. I'm really curious as to get your thoughts on this, where you're at with the deal after we took a pretty significant break from it here on the channel. This has been the first kind of major happening since then. Don't worry, we're not going to be getting into it every other week now, unless it's like the FTC completely stopping the deal or something like that. Then we'll talk about it. But I'm curious as to getting your thoughts on the matter. Where do you stand on the Activision deal with Xbox? Let me hear it in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the heck out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.